So apparently, Ragnarok Online is still alive and well. Can't say the same for me though. I'm sure some of you are familiar with a Korean MMORPG called Ragnarok Online, usually abbreviated as RO, that was released back in 2002. But for those who aren't, it's the game based off a manhwa created by Lee Mungjin called Ragnarok. It uses 2.5D graphics, mixing 2D character sprites with a 3D environment, and features an anime art style aesthetic with point-and-click gameplay. The developer Gravity used a monthly subscription to fund the game, the standard model for all MMOs used back in the day. In 2011, the business model was changed to free-to-play to be more in line with the changing landscape of online games. In order to generate income, a cash shop was added along with a new premium subscription called VIP, which gave extra incentives such as extra storage space, additional warp points, and increased experience and drop rates. As a result, it's seen by many as a pay-to-win game, though I don't find it to be a big issue since it doesn't actually prevent me from getting the best items. Eventually. Compared to more popular games at the time like EverQuest, Ultima Online, and the behemoth that is World of Warcraft, the RO community was tiny. Despite this, I consider it to have been widely popular in its prime and loved by many, though it's hard to state as a fact due to not having any of RO's subscription data. If Thailand's recent RO relaunch earlier this year is anything to go by, I would say it's a safe assumption. They had over 1.3 million pre-registration accounts and brought in over 100,000 concurrent users. A surprisingly large turnout for such an old game. I started playing RO again a few weeks ago, and man, it's so nostalgic. I remember being introduced to it a couple years after it came out and became pretty addicted to it. At the time, I had just gotten into Japanese animation, so the anime art style was a huge draw. It had cute characters and even cuter monsters, which was a different look from other MMOs that used a more realistic and gritty approach to their graphics. The animations were done really well, and everything about the game looked pleasing. But the biggest reason RO appealed to me was knowing that there were hundreds of other people playing the exact same game as me. Up until that point, my only real multiplayer experience was playing StarCraft Brood War, which was not an RPG, and Diablo, which was limited to 4 players per game. RO was an amazing experience that opened a whole new world of RPGs, allowing me to play with even more players than I thought possible. Being with a large group of my friends, leveling together, PvPing, fighting bosses, and exploring the beautiful world was something I had never done before. A majority of the games I played were single-player games, and they also weren't exactly the games my friends were interested in either, so it wasn't something I could connect with them over. But RO created an environment that we could all share. I have a lot of fond memories of our times playing together, and they were some of the best moments. I have a friend who played a perma-novice who named his character Hatred because he was pretty emo back in high school. He would be so proud of himself when he would beat other players in PvP, and it was pretty funny to see someone lose to such a weak class. He even advocated for a weekly Novice War of Imperium for a private server we played on, which ended up being a great time. Private servers were where I spent all of my time playing, due to not having the means to pay for a subscription. They were pretty cool since they had special NPCs and features not found on the official servers, such as a dungeon warper or stat resetter that made the game much more enjoyable. Their rates were also typically higher, so it felt slightly less grindy. However, they also had their share of issues like frequently shutting down from internal drama or lack of funding, so it was very common to have to migrate to a new server. As a result, I spent a lot of time on RO ranking sites with my friends to look for the next place to go that would hopefully last longer. Looking at the site brings back so many memories of our time field testing servers and arguing about who picked the best one. Despite having some negative aspects, I'm glad I got to experience it since I met a lot of cool people here and became part of their small community, something that wouldn't have happened if I played on IRO. By the time I landed a job, I had already moved on from RO. This was around when episode 12 was released in Korea, which introduced Satan Morok, so it was quite a bit ago. Since then, a lot of significant changes have been made to the game to improve the quality of life, such as the inclusion of the world map, a search function to look for items from vendors in town, an NPC tracker, and more. I knew RO was still up and running almost 20 years later, but I had no interest in going back, at least until now. Maybe it's being stuck indoors and missing when I could freely go outside and hang out with friends. I started to reminisce about the past, going down the rabbit hole of thoughts that led me to remembering RO, and I started to feel nostalgic. Before I knew it, I had the game installed and was logged in on my first character. So much was different, yet so much was the same. Even with all the new updates, the feel of the game hasn't changed one bit. There are still so many issues plaguing the user experience that it's very surprising that this game continues to survive and to have a player base, whether they play on official servers or not. I still have to pick up all the loot off the ground one by one. The UI is terrible with small text boxes and even smaller text appearing in the corner of the screen when talking to NPCs. Character controls are still unresponsive, causing some difficulty when trying to move, attack enemies, use skills, or pick up items. It can take multiple clicks to get the character to stop attacking during an auto attack or just walk to a certain area. The mouse also had some latency where it feels weird to move because it wouldn't respond in a way I would expect. To top it all off, the gameplay is still incredibly grindy, just walking from monster to monster and killing things in the most brain-dead fashion. Typically, this would be alleviated through story quests that add some variety to the leveling method, but RO basically has a non-existent story with very few quests to do. Instead, the most useful quests are bounty board hunt quests, which give a ton of experience when they're turned in, further reinforcing the mindless, grindy gameplay. It's a game that, if I had started playing it for the first time today, I probably wouldn't stick with it. But even with all those issues, I literally cannot stop logging on. I've been trying to figure out why I keep coming back to it. I'm having so much fun just pointing and clicking, turning off my brain while I kill monsters on the same map for hours on end. Yet in some other games, it's not something I can do without dying of boredom. The only reason that comes to mind is the heavy dose of nostalgia I get when I play. It's crazy how strong of a driving force this can be, especially when it's born from a game I've spent years on end playing for 15 hours a day, just grinding away trying to make the best character I could make. But it's likely that reason that I have this insatiable urge to continue, and it's giving me a lot of enjoyment in a game I've loved for a very long time. I get the same rush of excitement as when I played the game for the first time back in high school. It's something that reminds me of a much simpler time in life that was fun and filled with friends. I want to bring back my beloved characters that I spent hundreds of hours creating across multiple servers. I want to see my awesome sniper again. I want to experience being in a guild made up of close friends. I want to get strong enough to do PvP, and I want to relive those amazing memories from back in the day. I've already made a few characters, though they aren't very high level. I even got Hatred to start playing again, along with another friend who just enjoyed their first experience with it. I'm going to try and see how many other people I can convince to give it a try again. I don't know how long I will play for, but it'll be interesting to see how far I will get before I quit again. At the very least, these last few weeks have been the most leisurely fun I've had in a while. I only intended to briefly check out the game to look at the changes, but I may have ended up getting on a ride I can no longer get off of.